My name is Abhijit Ghosh, and on behalf of the College of Business, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you. The Cozad lecture series was established in the College of Business through the efforts of Peter and Kim Fox and through the support of the family and friends of Dale Cozad to reinforce the spirit of entrepreneurship among the University of Illinois community. And I'm very happy to have many members of the friends and family of Dale Cozad around here today to be with us today. As the Dean of the College of Business, I often find myself in the very unenviable position of being asked to introduce people who really need no introduction. And I find myself in the same position today. Neither Mr. Jackson nor the Globetrotters really need an introduction. But, I have to justify my existence, so I'll try to keep it very short. Okay. Mannie Jackson is a legend in his own time. Mannie Jackson's career has taken him from basketball court to the boardroom and then back again to the basketball. He grew up in Illinois and was named the state's Mr. Basketball while in high school. He's a graduate of this campus and was the first African-American All-American and the captain of the Illini basketball team. After graduation, Mr. Jackson joined the world-famous Harlem Globetrotters. I suspect he never anticipated that one day he would actually own the team. After a few years with the Globetrotters, he joined Honeywell, where he had a very successful corporate career. He was president and general manager of Honeywell's telecommunication business before retiring as a corporate officer and a senior vice president. Now, back in 1926, Abe Saperstein, at the age of 24, started a basketball team called the Savoy Big Five, named after Chicago's famous Savoy Ballroom. Saperstein's team made its first public debut in 1927 in Hinckley, Illinois, before a crowd of 300 people. The rest is, of course, history and the stuff of legends, too. The Globetrotters have now played in 117 countries and for over 120 million people. Over the years, the Globetrotters became home to some of the greatest legends of basketball: Geese Osby, Marcus Haynes, Walt Chamberlain, Connie Hawkins, Mannie Jackson, Meadowlark Lemon, Goose Tatum, Curly Neal, and Lynette Woodard, to name just a few of them. They set standards for basketball as well as for entertainment. I believe the Globetrotters still hold the record for the largest attendance at a basketball game when they performed in front of a crowd of over 70,000 people in Berlin in the early 1950s. And they have performed for the Pope and the heads of states from around the world. From their modest beginning in Hinckley, the Globetrotters have evolved to the stature of a national and international treasure. Now, in 1993, Mannie Jackson became the owner of a major international sports and entertainment organization when he purchased the nearly bankrupt Harlem Globetrotters, then in their 67th year. And he has taken the franchise in new directions and to new heights. Under his management, the Globetrotters quickly achieved a dramatic corporate turnaround, turning the near-bankrupt organization into the most admired and one of the most publicized teams in the world. Revenues increased fivefold, and the fan base have risen to a record level. A strong believer in brand management, Mr. Jackson signed up as sponsor for Globetrotters World Tour and partnered with the clothing manufacturer For Us, By Us, popularly known by its acronym FUBU, to create a collection of clothing line based on the Globetrotters. The Globetrotters now has a merchandising and licensing company that coordinates sponsorship, licensing, and promotion agreements worth over $100 million annually. Mr. Jackson's skills have benefited many other organizations as well. Since 1993, the Globetrotters itself have made charitable contributions that have totaled more than $10 million. He is a founding member and a former president of the executive leadership, a member of the Board of Governors of the American Red Cross, and serves on the board of directors of major corporations. He was nominated for the Desmond Tutu Award for Human Rights in recognition for his work in South Africa, and in 2003, Lincoln University of Pennsylvania, the nation's oldest historically black college, bestowed on Mr. Jackson the honorary doctorate degree in human letters. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our 2003 Cozad lecturer, Mr. Illinois basketball, University of Illinois alum, successful corporate leader, entrepreneur, and a great citizen, Dr. Mannie Jackson.
Thank you.
It's everything you ever wanted. What moment? Capture it. Just let it slip.
All right.
Internationally known, the Harlem Globetrotters were founded as a barnstorming basketball team in 1926 and began traveling the following year. 2000 later, in 1940, the Globetrotters dominated sport when they won the World Basketball Championship in Chicago. In 1948, and again in 1949, the Globetrotters shocked the world when they beat the In 1993, Mannie Jackson bought the Globetrotters and rejuvenated the competitive team. This talented team is heating up the rim, working to be recognized as one of the top 10 teams in the world. The Harlem Globetrotters boast over 21,000 victories, more than any team in sports history.
He'll stop inside the 20, around the circle, for a count.
You know, I look at those highlight films all the time, and I enjoy them every time I see them. It's something energizing about the music and the energy of young people in sport. And I think what happens is that it seems to me that in business, the executives try to emulate the energy and the enthusiasm of young people in sport. And one of the best messages that I got from a gentleman named Bill Ray, thank you. Bill Ray would be proud of me now. Got it? And Bill told me once when I started out with Honeywell, he said, you know, you're much too serious. He said, I got a guy who played professional basketball at the Globetrotters, no less. He's so damn serious, he said. And I said, he said, you worry too much. And he said, I said, what do you think? He said, it's just a game. Just a game, he said. He said, approach it the same way you approach those games you played on the schoolyard and the way you played at the University of Illinois. It's just a game. And he said, you don't count your wins and losses and mixed baskets and all that kind of stuff. You just play. And I thought about that with business. And it served me well. And I look back and someone says, what got you where you are? And honestly, I think there are a couple things I could say easily. One, being raised in the Midwest didn't hurt. Being raised in Edwardsville, Illinois. I mean, the grounding that you get from being raised in Illinois and Edwardsville, and the infrastructure I call support that you get from extended families in these communities, unequal any place else. And then having played basketball, a team sport, which life is kind of built around teams, hands down, I can't say that many other things. And I got a great education here, by the way. The people in LAS, I got a great education. Because I didn't come to school to be a student. I'm going to come back to that later. I came to the University of Illinois to play basketball. And I got a real rude awakening. Because what I found out when I came here, said it was easy to get in, but it was hard to last past the first semester of first year. And suddenly I had to be a student. But you didn't come here to talk about that. I'll come back to that later. Let me tell you the important part of my story that has some business feeling to it. I worked at Honeywell for over 20 years, and I was an entrepreneur. I was that quirky guy that always seemed to have the good jobs, that always seemed to be called upon to go places, and always seemed to know the top people, and always seemed to be able to introduce the brass to somebody special, who was always on television doing something. That quirky guy was kind of off base. But I was also that quirky guy that when anybody had a very hard problem to solve, whether it's in engineering or accounting or marketing, they always called on me to help out. And I was that quirky guy in the back of the room that always had the strange questions to ask. I could create a feeling around those questions that people wanted to go deeper and try to understand them. Well, after spending 22 years, in the last 10 years as an entrepreneur inside the company, in which I built a telecommunications business from zero to something, it struck me that it's time to do something on my own, to do it myself. Not unlike what you guys talk about here. I use the corporate world as a development ground, an extension of my education, to get better and to learn. Well, here's what happened. Having played with the Harlem Globetrotters, I got a notice one day from a banker that said the Harlem Globetrotters were up for sale. And I'd been looking around at buying something that I could have some fun at, because I'm to the point in life where it was important to think about having fun. A banker from Kidder Peabody called me and said the Harlem Globetrotters are up for sale. And the price of the team is $44.5 million. And I said, send me the paper. And so I did the kind of cash flow analysis and discounted cash flow projections, and I wrote him back and I said, nice try, but it's not going to happen here. And he said, well, we're going to get $44.5 million. You better get in line to get this. It's going to happen. I said, well, I'll come back to you later. About 6 months later, I get a call that says the holding company that had the Harlem Globetrotters has now gone into bankruptcy. We'd like to hear your proposal, what you would do with the team if you owned the team. At this point, they were thinking about how they could get as much cash from this cash cow, the Globetrotters, as they could get. They knew I knew about business. They knew I had a passion for the Harlem Globetrotters. They wanted me to come in and talk them through how to build a story around marketing the Globetrotters. I knew what their goal was. They wanted me to build a story around the Globetrotters so they could sell it to someone else. So I'll do it. I was still working in Honeywell, and I had no intention of leaving Honeywell at that time. I said, I'll do it, but I said, I'd like to have a written statement that says I have the first right of refusal on pricing. And I also said I want first and last look. In other words, whatever price they negotiated, I had the ability to buy it for less than they got it, and they sold it for me. They said, okay. So I went in, I met with them, and they wanted to pay me to do this. And I said, put the money in an escrow account someplace. Eventually we'll give it to charity, but I'll stay with you. Now, when you think about business, you think about strategies and where it's going. I had time from the first meeting until I went back to the bank to think about what I would do if I owned the Harlem Globetrotters. In other words, I had created this story. I had a story in my mind about what I saw this company becoming. And I didn't get that story just dream it up one night. I walked the streets. I went into the urban areas. I went into schools. I went on basketball courts. We had a marketing group in Minneapolis that called people in from the businesses to say, what do you remember about it? And I let them help me create a story. By the time I got to the bank, they were pretty surprised to the degree in which I developed a story, which they call it in your classes strategy, around the business. But I had a story, and that was my vision about the story. Now here's the stupid part about this, gang. My story looks nothing like what I'm doing today. My story was to disband the traveling team, celebrate Meadowlark and Curly in a big way, have a big party for them, put a licensed product business together, much like the Negro Baseball League, and sell clothing and caps and memorabilia, and put a museum someplace in some highly trafficked area, and give a tribute to the greatness of the Harlem Globetrotters. That was my story. And I created a cash flow statement around that, and frankly, the bank liked it. This is how long will it take you to do this, they asked me. I said, I could probably turn this over in 6 or 8 months. I went back to Mike Bonsignore, the chairman of Honeywell at the time. I said, Mike, I got a few bucks. My contribution to the African American community will be that I will serve or put together a memorial to the Harlem Globetrotters. I want to shut it down and build a museum, put some licensed products out, do a book, a movie, and help people understand how great this organization was to society and to integration, our sports entertainment as we know it. He said, fine, do you need help? I said, a couple $100, $1,000 wouldn't hurt, but we're okay. I went out to Boston to meet with the team to tell them that I was acquiring the Globetrotters. And I walked into the Boston Garden, and they had brought Meadowlark Lemon back at that time. He was 62 years old. But they brought him back to help sell the game. There were 2,500 people in the building. And I said, just like your reaction, whoa, this is worse than I thought. But I said, I'm on the right track. It'll be shut down anyway in 6 months or a year. We went back to the Sheraton Hotel after the game, and I had the players sit around me. And I felt like a coach in the locker room. I had them sit around me, and I stood up and I said, guys, nice try. You made history. You'll be a part of the last touring show of the Harlem Globetrotters. And I began to go through this story about what I would do with them. I'd do a movie. I would do a book. I'd already talked to Disney about thinking about doing a musical. And I was thinking about this licensed product stuff with T-shirts and caps and memorials to Meadowlark and Goose and others. I started telling the story, and I looked at these guys sitting there looking at me, and I thought, they probably think I'm a turncoat. Here's a guy who formerly played with the team, who shows up and says, I'm taking it over. And the message he has, that he's going to shut it down. So to show you how smart I am, which isn't very smart, right in the middle of giving this talk, I changed my story. Hey, nobody said I was the smartest guy in the world, maybe one of the richest, but not the smartest. I changed my story. I said, we're going to tour 1 more year. I give you 1 more chance to get this right. We're going to go out 1 more year. To which I saw them set up. They really got interested in that. Well, 1 more year, so they got a reprieve. And they could do what they had to do. 1 more year, I said, and that'll be it. But that was my concession to the emotions that were going on in that room and the history of the Harlem Globetrotters. We do 1 more year. Then I got scared. Because that meant I had to go back to Mike Bonsignore, where I was a senior officer with Honeywell, and say, look, I probably can't do both jobs. I had to go back to my wife and say, I'm going to be gone a lot more. And oh, by the way, that account we have set up over here, I need access to it right away because I got to spend some money out of it. And I had to tell my daughters, oh, by the way, you may not be going to college on Dad, so toughen up and get your grades ready. I was a little scared. But being an entrepreneur, it's healthy to be scared. If you're not scared, you're probably not an entrepreneur. You're not on the edge. So I was scared. But I put a story together. And I fell back on the one thing that the couple things that I knew pretty well. I knew that to be successful, I had to meet with people and enlist an army of supporters. So I went to every building, virtually every building the Globetrotters had played, and I met with the owners and operators of those buildings. And I said, give us a chance. Give us a chance to do this 1 year. Give us the best deal you can on booking these buildings. Give us a chance. And I told them the story about the history of the Harlem Globetrotters, how I cared, how I thought we could do better, what it meant to communities, what it meant to kids. And the story I told them had 5 or 6 components to it. Number one, I told them, I said, all the people you saw working for the Globetrotters before, now, by the way, I'm talking strategies now, but I'm not going to tell them like strategies. I'm telling them like beliefs. And I'll precede every strategy with a belief statement. All the people you saw working for the Harlem Globetrotters before, they're not going to work for the Harlem Globetrotters anymore. Because I believe that the people who work for a company ought to be committed. They ought to be people who will work a lot of hours, people who want to be successful, people who will find a purpose for working. I believe that. The second thing I told them, that I believe that an organization that's successful ought to be able to do good as well as being good. We're going to be charitable. I believe that, I told them. I told them that an organization that works has to be an organization that measures itself and communicates back to you how we're doing and what we're doing for you. Because when you go into a building and the building operator has 15,000 seats to fill, they don't care a lot about your problems. Their concern is, can they make money from this organization? And I made a commitment. I said, I believe that we can be a moneymaker for your organization if you'll help us in a certain way. And I'll commit resources so that you can help us. Because I believe that by staffing right, by being charitable, I can help you be successful. I told them that I believed that I could put an organization together that each community could be proud of, as if it were their hometown team. And I said, I also believe that the person who runs the organization ought to be the person where the buck stops. And I said, you know about the former owners with the unlisted phone numbers and the limousines bringing them to games and events and special seats and cocktails being served. I said, I believe that as the owner and the one who's making a commitment to you, I'll be here for these games. And I'll be at the other end of the phone. And I'll answer the calls and I'll answer the mail. Because I believe if you invest in me, I need to be around for that. Well, the reaction I got from the building people was, I like the idea that you want to do this. I believe enough in the equity in the Harlem Globetrotters that I think we ought to do this. Now, the last thing I did when I went back, because of my background with Honeywell, I said, I believe in brand management. And I said, I don't know a lot about business, but I know about brand principles. And I said, now, I know as a brand, whether you're Mannie Jackson or a kid, we all make promises. We represent something. When you get married, you represent something. I went to a wedding 2 days ago, and I thought it was interesting because both the bride and the groom said their vows. They were making a commitment to each other. They were branding themselves for the other person. I know that each student that came to the school said this: we'll pay our tuition, we'll stay out of trouble, I'll do as well as I can in school, and if I graduate, I'll probably give back to the university in some way. That's the commitment they make. We all make promises. We all represent something. So in branding, I took the Globetrotters and I said, I'm going to brand this team. This is a great brand, the Harlem Globetrotter name. but I'm going to make 4 promises. And I'm going to make 4 promises that we're going to all live with and believe in and live by it as hard as we can. I didn't create these promises out of the blue. These are stories that I got from the kids I met in the urban areas, from the students I met, and these are stories I got from the building people that said, here's what I think you ought to be trying to do, and I consolidate all their statements into brand promises. Because every company has to make a commitment to its constituency. Think about it. If you're a fast food organization, I'm going to get you in and out here quick. It'll be the same whether you stop in Pennsylvania or in New York. The pricing will be consistent. So branding has to make a promise. And I was talking foreign language to sports people and to the people who had worked in the organization before, but I made 4 promises. I say I made it because the buck stopped here. The first promise I made was we were going to continue to be first and foremost in family entertainment. We were not going to abandon our commitment to be a family-oriented organization. You say family-friendly if you want to. We were going to be a family-driven organization. That was a promise I made. And I set up measurements for each of those, for that one. The second promise I made was that we would honor the title that Gerald Ford gave us and anointed us as ambassadors of goodwill to the world. We would always represent this country, our community, and this industry in the highest way, as ambassadors of goodwill. Wherever we went, we'd be ambassadors of goodwill. People and individuals that the country could be proud of by standards that have been defined by someone other than us as something that's acceptable. And that's a hard thing for a black guy to do, let me tell you the truth. Because I had to swallow some things and say we were going to be ambassadors of goodwill for this country, especially in the sports industry. But we're going to do that. The next thing that I did because of my work here at the University of Illinois and being a competitive basketball player, I wanted to have a great basketball team. I wanted a team that could walk into any building in the country or in the world and be respected for its excellence as well as its showtime. And I said, we're going to build a great basketball team. We're going to build one that by any standard, when it's looked upon, they'll say, that's a great organization. That's a great basketball team. Now, the last promise I made is a little bit difficult maybe for you to understand. But I said, we're going to run at every opportunity. We're going to run a responsible business. Since I've been an employee all my life and served on boards of directors of 5 Fortune 500 companies, I knew about disclosure and the Open Air Act, the Sunshine Act. I knew about the need for full disclosures and being open and running a business that was responsible. No under-the-table deals, no crazy expenditures, full accountability. I'm an entrepreneur, private business guy. I wouldn't have to tell anybody anything. But I said we're going to run a responsible business, one that anyone can be proud of. Now that's a mouthful, but that became the mantra for the organization. And everyone that came in began to know early this was a branded organization. This was an organization that had made promises to itself and to the marketplace. And if you couldn't get in line with those promises, and you weren't a part of those promises, you were probably in the wrong place. Now, that's okay if we're talking about business principles and stuff. But the other challenge, I had 2 challenges that were really hard, really hard. The first one, you'll all understand, we had no cash. We had no cash. I had to figure out how to get some cash. So what do you do when you need cash and the size we need? You go to Friends First. That's Friends First. And I went to all those people that with Honeywell that I'd done good things for. They remember me in the glory days. And I said to them, I need cash. I'm not going to give you the pitch about investing in the Harlem Globetrotters first. I'm going to tell you right now I need cash. So I went to the chairman of Honeywell, the former chairman. Who would know me better than the former chairman? And whether I could do it because, he's betting on me. He didn't care about the Globetrotters, he was betting on me. And Ed Spencer, who's the former chairman, said, okay, all right, I give. How much? And I said, $100,000. He said, all right, here's $100,000. Do you need more? I said, no, I'll come back if I need more. But that was a start. So I told everybody in the community that Ed Spencer would give me $100,000. I went to Northwest Airline, a gentleman named Chris Cozad, I said, Chris, I'm trying to do the impossible. I need cash. So I'll give you cash. But I went to friends. And I promised them two things. I said, one, how much cash you give me, I'm going to secure it on my personal well-being, which meant my home, my Honeywell stock, my bank accounts for securing it. And I will guarantee you, it's debt and equity, by the way. Business people know debt and equity. I said, whatever you give me will be a debt obligation. We'll pay you 15% a year, guaranteed, and the other part will be equity in the company. And we developed a formula for payback. So the worst they were going to do was 15% on their investment annually. And most of them felt the goodwill of being a part of the Harlem Globetrotters. But I said, there's one thing I'd like to do, because the bank is kind of holding me up for something else. I said, I want the option to buy you out within 5 years at wherever we are. I want to take you out in 5 years. Most of them felt relieved to know they'd get off and under this favor they did me. But they did it. And in the third year, we were able to buy all the investors out at the 15% debt portion, and also at the equity growth portion. And to give you an idea how big that's gotten, my best friend at the time put $100,000 into the company. And about December 1st, I'll pay him $17 million for his investment. That's how well my best friend did. Plus, he's already gotten the payback on the $100,000. That's how well he's done. He's been in 10 years, a long time. When I went to the bank for this $44 million company, they felt like they were going down for the last time. The season was about ready to start. It was the end of August. They knew the season was coming up. They couldn't afford to lose another cash flow season. So they sold the company to me for $5.5 million. And this is all public record. It's been Wall Street Journal, every place, $5.5 million. But the Journal didn't say is that they made a bet on me too. And looked at me like a bad bet, but they made the bet on me. And they retained a 20% interest in the company. And the last day of negotiations, I also went to them and said, I want to be able to buy you out. And we set a farm that was looked like high at the time, fairly reasonable. I want to be able to buy you out within 5 years. I can call anytime in 5 years. But the bank was happy. They got $5.5 million. They also had a trailing interest in the company, which they were paid well for that. And off we went. And the challenges we had was raising cash. That was taken care of. The second challenge is the hardest one. Every great brand that's around for more than 10 years has this problem. Your history. Because the question then becomes, are you relevant today? And you can't leave your history behind. That's a part of your bringing. You can't drop that. But the challenge is, how do you marry your history with the present? Now, you see some companies that want to divorce their history. Well, in life we can't do that. That's a part of us. So I've been challenged with the fact, how do I take an organization that if you're 50 years old or 45 years old, you remember well the cartoons of the 70s, Curly Neal and Meadowlark Lemon. And people will come to me today and say, is Curly Neal and Meadowlark Lemon going to be here? Because they were that generation that saw the cartoon period and the television period. Then I'll see a person will come to me that's in their 70s or 80s, and they'll say, I never saw a basketball player like Marcus Haynes or Goose Tatum. They were the best. Are they still around? And I'll have people come to me and talk about the Minneapolis Laker game when you won the championship. People will talk about the roaring 20s and the 40s. All that history is kind of mushed into one when a brand has been around a long time. So the good news, you're around a while. The bad news is you carry that legacy of history with you. And when you're asked the question about current relevance, you've got to package that in a way that works. And we spent a lot of time working on that story. So we had to take Sweet Georgia Brown, give it a little bit different twist to it, a little bit different move to it. We had to take the uniforms that everybody remembers so well, and we had to dress them up just a little bit. We had to take the routines the Globetrotters had done, and we had to make them feel like another environment without changing it. And people will say, it hadn't changed much. And others will say, it's not like I remembered it. But I said, do you like it? I said, yeah, we liked it. but that's been an ongoing challenge to bring people into this time. Now, I was told I had 25 minutes to do what I'm doing a bookend. It's going to be about 600 pages. But I thought I would end with what I've learned from all this experience. And by the way, when being introduced, I think this is the greatest franchise in the history of sports and entertainment. And I want to tell you two things that you can credit the Harlem Globetrotters as being important for. First of all, whether you're in South Africa or some parts of Asia, people remember and have a pleasant, feel-good feeling about the experience of the first time they saw and had an occasion to be around the Harlem Globetrotters. That's invaluable. And I don't care where you are in the world, and that's something that's, you can't put a price tag on that. Not until the Harlem Globetrotters came along did we really understand how much sport and entertainment was blended together. Not until the Harlem Globetrotters made that clear. The sport and the fusion of sport and entertainment became absolute one through the Harlem Globetrotters. And now it's accepted as being one. Sport could not have survived without the entertainment value. These characters back in that day did it routinely. It was a part of their makeup. They were just special, high-skilled, very profound people who could act and perform like few others. They absolutely changed the way all of us thought about sport and caused it to be a part of our life through entertainment. That was a contribution they made. The second contribution they made had to be when it was believed that the races should be separate. In fact, here's the story I got. There were 6 NBA teams, meaning there were about 60 or 70 NBA basketball players. And a marketing person from the NBA told me directly, we cannot bring African-American ball players into the NBA at too great a numbers because white audiences want to see white stars. So the quota system is going to be 1 or 2. And that was the absolute. So guys like me that come to the University of Illinois, if you went to a team and I went to New York and there were 27 players trying out, 16 of us were black, they'd come up to you and say, 2 of you guys are going to make the team. Because this marketing philosophy was, it wasn't about being good, it was about being the right color and the right shape. Well, I should tell you, the Red Auerbach had something to do with that. Red Auerbach was like Joe Luco, my high school coach. He said, I don't give a damn what color you are. Can you play? Can you play? And when I hire somebody in my business right now, I don't care what age you are. I don't care what color you are. I don't care how tall you are. Can you work? Can you get it done? So Red Auerbach said, I'll tell you what I'll do. Give me Chuck Cooper, that black ball player you had. Give me Bill Russell. Give me the best players I can get, and I don't care what color they are. I believe winning is the most important thing I could do. Jesse Jackson said, we may not have known how great sport could have been without diversity. We may not have ever known how great it could have been. But through the games with the Minneapolis Lakers, the eyes were opened in a way that they said, maybe it's as important, at least, to be good as it is to be the right color. And I believe sincerely the Harlem Globetrotters had something to do with changing the color and the perception of performance in professional sports. Those are the contributions. Now, what I've learned, and I'll be quick with this because I want to get the questions and answers. Every year I kind of write down things that I've kind of figured out being around all this stuff. And I'm up to about 16 items right now. I'm going to do 5 of them for you, what I've learned. I'm going to try to explain the 5. I hate to say this to management people who are in school, but I don't care a lot. I know you're going to hear me say this. I think management is important, but people don't like to be handled or like to be managed. We need leaders. So whether I'm with Ashland Oil or Reebok or with Stanley Company, and they bring in a top executive, a chief marketing officer, I don't know about their leadership skills. What have they demonstrated in the past to show me they can lead? I look at their academic record next, and where they went to school after that. I want to see what leadership track record they have. this country, our businesses, we're short on leaders. Seek leaders. Find a way to develop your leadership skills. You will rise to the top if you're a leader. And companies are going that way now. They're looking for leaders. Looking for leaders. It's not unusual to see an accountant leading an engineering team, an engineering working over marketing. They're good leaders. Second thing of the 16 or 17, relationships. They talk about don't burn bridges. This whole tough guy stuff wears thin after a while. When I was a kid, we used to hear him talk about old Joe down in the boiler room. He's a tough guy. He ruled with an iron fist. Come on. Ain't no iron fist around anymore. Come on, it's relationships. You got to care about people. You got to get inside where they are. If you're buying or selling, you need to know who you're working with and spend the time. That's an investment of your time and your energy and your emotions. Relationships. If you're working for somebody, you got to manage that person. You got to know about them. You got a relationship with the person you're working for. If you're buying, you want to have a relationship with the person you're buying from. If you're selling, you want to have that relationship. But relationships are important. Forget about the tough guy routine. That wears thin. That wears thin. You won't go far. But the right relationships will carry you a long, long ways, because therein lies respect. I believe in branding. I believe in branding not because it's a cliche, but I believe that time should be taken to figure out what promises you intend to make as a person, because you are a brand as a person, to society and to your constituents. I believe in branding. And branding has rewarded me well and rewarded the business very well. And brand identity and brand excellence is not given away easy by the marketplace. Those companies that have great brands, they work very hard and very diligently. They have great track records. They follow up. They care about their customers. They do what they say they're going to do. And they're committed to taking care of the people who take care of them. The next one I have is that teams win. It's not unlike the basketball team here. Teams win. It's a nice thing, but because individuals take credit for it. I mean, Bobby Knight at Indiana stands up front and he talks about how great he is as a coach and other than the teams win. At the end of the day, teams win. So if you walk in the toughest business situation, you've got to build a team, because the teams will make it happen. Don't ever forget that. Teams win. I don't care about the superstars out front. Teams win. Teams make it worthwhile. Teams win. It's a team game. It's a team game. The last one I'll tell you about is the one that, actually the next to the last one, because the one I'll tell you last is one that Coach Luco, my coach in high school, told me, and it still sticks with me 40 years later. You got to grow or die. You got to grow or die. You got to grow or die. And I say that to you in a way that you should understand. You've got to get a little bit better. You got to reach a little further every quarter, every year, in some aspect of your life and of your business. Either grow or die. Once you stop, the marketplace runs right by you. You have to figure out a way to motivate yourself and to find those inches that you can move upward and move and stretch and take a spot somewhere where you are today. You got to grow or die. And within your organization, you got to celebrate. You got to celebrate growth. Personal growth, financial growth, your business growth, you've got to figure out a way to grow. If you've lost the enthusiasm or energy for growth, resign. Get away. If you say, I don't need to do it anymore, go somewhere else. Because if you don't go somewhere else, the business will kick you out. Your employees will kick you out. Your employer will kick you out. You got to think in terms, I'm going to get better. I'm not where I need to be. But grow or die. Grow or die. Now the last one. And I'll tell you this story. I'm in Lebanon, Illinois. Everybody know where Lebanon is here? Lebanon, Illinois. When I was a kid, 16 years old, we finished the basketball season. And believe it or not, the biggest honor I had was for my high school coach to load me in his car. In the back seat, he'd carry his son and someone else. And he was a speaker. He'd go around to churches, Kiwanis clubs, and he'd give speeches. And I didn't. I enjoyed being around the guy. Plus, I got a great meal. And we'd go to all these schools because he was in great demand. Joe Luco was his name. He was a great high school coach and a super guy and a great communicator. And we would ride 60 miles, 100 miles, and we'd talk all the way. And I'd just listen to him as he talked. And we'd go to these places, and he'd give a speech, and he'd say, oh, by the way, one of my players or future players here, Mannie Jackson, please stand up. And I'd stand up, and I felt good being recognized. Plus, I liked being around the guy. But he ended every talk telling a story about his son and the message he gave to players. And it's always stuck with me. And Joe Luco was about this tall, if you remember. You remember him? About that tall. He says, I don't care how big you are. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how tough you think you are. He said, there's a lot of unknowns in this world. I can't give anybody a guarantee, he used to say. He said, my son would come to me in the mornings and say, Dad, how do you know? What do you think? Or why? And Joe always ended his talks by saying, I can't tell you what I think. I don't exactly know. But he said, you got to believe. You just frickin' got to believe. And if you're working in business or you take on an initiative, you got to surround yourself with people who believe. And if you don't believe, you know what I'm saying? Within a few minutes, the people who are around you will lose faith and they'll drift and they'll go someplace else. You've got to surround yourself with believers. You got to hone your story, sharpen your attitude, prepare yourself so that you believe you could transfer that passion to somebody else. I don't think you need a great vision to be successful or great strategies to be great. But I'll tell you one thing, whatever vision you have, whatever strategy you have, you better believe in it. And you better surround yourself with people who believe in it. And your customers have to be taught to believe in you. And your basketball players have to believe in your system and believe they're on their way someplace, that they're going to be the greatest basketball team, or they're going to be the best company distributor, or their product and services will deliver what you. They've got to believe that. But you simply got to believe. And I found no substitute for that. No substitute for it. Disbelievers need to get someplace where they can find something they can believe in. But your company, the people around you, have to believe in you and believe what your company's about, where your vision is. You've got to believe. Now, they talk about repositioning companies. I think 1,000 people can do that for companies. But can they believe in it themselves and they can transfer that passion and belief to others? That's where the test is. That's where the test is. Professor, I'm sorry I took so long. I would like to take some time for questions, if I could. Yes. I understand we have a few minutes for that. Thank you. Any questions about what we've done?
We have time for a few questions. We just want to make a request. This, with Mr. Jackson's permission, we are making a record of this presentation today so that students who couldn't come today could have the benefit of it. So if you have a question, if you would either come up to the mic or just draw attention, we'll pass the mic on to you so that everybody can hear your question.
And you can ask me anything. I'm at home in Illinois now, so you can ask me the most difficult. I've been dying to tell these stories that I got going on about this thing.
I have a question. How involved were you in the details reconfiguring the Globetrotters? How many employees did you have, and who else was involved in that process?
I have a good question. Colleen Lenahan, who's also an Illinois graduate, is here with me today. She's been with me for... I stay with me because we've been like partners for the last 10 years.
The evolution of the photography. Before photography had always kind of looked at what paintings had done. Okay, and paintings were always about still life. This is now really...
Let me finish this answer. Let me take up where they left off. The answer is intimately involved in every aspect of the business, every detail. Every player that comes into the organization, they've either had dinner in my home, spent the night, or spent hours with them talking to them. Every strategy we develop, our pricing thing that we set, our scheduling piece, they've either talked to me directly or talked to Colleen. And she's like my alter ego. She's a, wish she wasn't here, she's a brilliant pre-med student that came to work for me for a couple weeks just to take the summer away, do some things in the summer, moved to my home and started going through all my papers, and eventually she knew more about what I had to know than I knew. And I knew this person had a passion for what I was doing. She believed what we were trying to do. She now is president of Globetrotter Properties. She's the one that grew that business. But she knows we spend hours going over every piece of work that we have. And if I'm not available 24/7 by phone, she is. And everyone's told to contact me or Colleen, and her judgment is kind of the screen of what happens, and we stay on top of things. I don't think there's... Paul Fireman is the chairman of Reebok, and that's about a $3 or $4 billion company. Paul and I talked about this one time. Paul says, I can't afford to shut my phone off. I can't afford to do that. Paul, we're $600-700 million. I cannot afford in my business to be separated from the needs of people who are working in my business. Now, you say that's a lot of work and a lot of time. No, if you structure it right. And if you got good screens like Colleen, you have to be involved, not in process all the time, but you have to be intimately involved with things that affect structure. And see, structure precedes process. You have to chalk the playing field so that those who work for you and with you stay inside that chalked field. When they feel they've stepped outside that, the alarm ought to go off, and that's the time you need to get back involved again. My attitude is I have to stay involved. I want to be involved.
What advice would you give African Americans in trying to enter entrepreneurship on a large-scale basis?
Okay, we had a meeting today and we talked about that. Find something you're passionate about, you care about. There's a lot of stuff to do. If you're interested in making money or making a contribution or developing something unique, find out the place that you love, that you don't mind committing your time to, that you want to be there. So when you get up on Saturday morning, you don't have to say, I got to go in the office. Wrong words. You get up on Saturday morning and say, I need to be there. I want to stop by this place to see what's happening. Find something you're passionate about. And there's a lot of areas to do it. It's so fertile. What isn't fertile is your understanding of what you're passionate about right now. So get out and test the waters and see what makes you feel good, what stands your hair up. Not much left here. What stands your hair up, makes you really excited about it. Get into those areas because it's easy then. It's easy. It's not that hard. The hardest thing is finding something you really care about and getting distractions out of the way. If you have distractions or conflict, it's not the place to be. But you'll find that place at some point where you say, this feels good. This is where I want to be. And once you get there, be passionate about it and just work at it harder than anybody else and stay with it. And you'll succeed. You'll succeed. It's not that, I did it. It's not that hard. I'm a basketball player from Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, of all places. Did all right. Give me a good tough one. Give me a good tough one.
What is your view on street ball and its marketing potential?
I've seen a lot of things come around in the last 20, 30 years. I like it because I like the energy and enthusiasm of the guys. Most of the guys have played with me at one time or another. I like it. One thing I really like about what's happening is that it expands the way people look at the game. I thought the game was looked at too narrowly at one time. And it tells me that in maturity of a market, the customers will expand the way they look at the market, and it creates points of entry for a lot of people. It's okay. I like it. I have fun watching it. And I think it's been great for N1 because they built a shoe business off from it. They built a chain. It's good. It's good. Innovative. These are guys who can handle the ball and do stuff and do their thing, listen to music, and they create a business out of it. You say, how'd they do that? That's what's great about this freaking place we live. What's great about it?
Hello, Mr. Jackson.
Where are you? Okay.
I'm actually very glad to be here. I'm actually not a business student. I'm in education, but a friend invited me from NABA. I'm curious to know more about where I could find out more about your community-based work and your family-oriented work.
Go to our website.
Okay.
And we're doing work in 3 areas. Mostly with youth, education, health, and human spirit. And we're almost spread so thin because we're trying to do it globally, and we're trying to focus back in again, but those are 3 categories, and By the way, Colleen is also president of the foundation. So she works that area, but we make a number of contributions, but they tend to work in areas of young people, education, health, and human spirit. Okay.
You know, we've enjoyed the times Globetrotters have been here in the community, and I know from my wife's involvement with the United Way, you've made a lot of contributions to kids, making it possible for them to go to the games. What about the game with the Globetrotters and the University of Illinois, preseason game? What do we need to do to get that arranged?
You know, I don't know. As we speak, it's 6:15 right now, and our team is teeing up. Okay, we're going to tee up. Our team is the toss-up happens in 45 minutes against North Dakota State. The team's in North Dakota. They leave North Dakota and they go to East Lansing. And I'm told 20,000 sold out to see us play Michigan State. And at Syracuse, there's going to be 25,000. I have talked to Mr. Self, Coach Self, a number of times. And I have a great relationship with Bruce. And I think we're going to do a deal probably next year. I think we're going to do it. And I tell you, I want so badly to come back here and bring the Globetrotters. You'll see another dimension of the Globetrotters. We'll try not to do the show, and we'll try to put on a good exhibition. But I want to play the University of Illinois before the largest crowd, enthusiastic crowd that feels neutral about who they're rooting for, and have some fun doing it. Help us next year. Help us next year.
You referred to your initial struggle of getting cash to get the business going. What would you say was the next biggest struggle in order to get your business going once you got the cash, both in business and personally?
Yeah, the next biggest struggle was credibility. Just this credibility of the brand, of the product. And that's where the story had to be told. It takes a lot of care with someone personally and with an organization entity to improve the credibility and respect and trust in it. And when I say credibility, it really translates to trust, because brands have to be trusted. And I think people have lost their trust. Here's what happens. They remember a time when they did trust it, but there's been a void, where they give it again or where it stands, so they don't sample the product anymore, and they walk by it and they have great stories until they don't use it again. So they create that trust and good feeling about it again. And we had kind of spent the bank on that. There wasn't much left in trust and credibility. And that was hard. It was frustrating. And it just, if you didn't have an appetite for a lot of hard work and passion and staying with it, it's enough to turn you around. And you know when you start something out. So it took a lot of time to get that back again. My daughter, who's starting out as a writer, she got a great education from NYU, and she walks into a wall, and she calls my wife, and wife will give her, I tell her, get back in there. Go back and fight it. Go back. You got to keep going. But that's where the strength comes. You got to keep going. You got to get used to hearing the word no. No's got to be a friend. There's nothing wrong with the word no. All no means is not at this time. So, when I went to somebody and they said, I'll go somewhere else, I said, I'll come back to you later. And sure enough, we're right. I'm going to tell you, now we go back. They sent a card for us. They want to talk to us. It wasn't at that time. They weren't bad people. But that was the hardest thing. And my daughter's kind of learning that now. Give me a tough one.
What, from your experience, what will be the toughest part of being an entrepreneur?
Oh, boy. I think it's hard because you got to find something you like to do. And I'll tell you what's hardest right after that. It's like rolling down a hill, a snowball rolling down a hill to pick up a lot of stuff. You're going to carry a lot of people things along with you. And they may not have the same passion for what you want to do that you have. And you got to bring them along too. You know what I'm saying? Because when you decide to be an entrepreneur, it's a lonely world. It's a lonely world to be successful. That's why good friends and good family and people who care become really important to you. Because you're going to roll along at a pace that's going to offend a lot of people. And family has to be talked to and said, this is what we're about, this is why I'm doing this, and bring them along at a pace that they feel like they're keeping up with this ball rolling down this hill. That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. So what happens if you don't do that, two things will happen. You'll be looking back so constantly at them that you won't be able to keep up, fail, or you just say, it ain't worth it, and you walk away from it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. Okay?
I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there are a lot of African American alums who refuse to come back to campus to share their experiences with students. Can you talk a little bit more about how your experiences here at U of I shaped your opinion about coming back and sharing?
My experience at Illinois sucked. It was bad. I mean, shit, I couldn't get a haircut down the street. I couldn't go in half the restaurants, and I couldn't date who I wanted to. I had to stay. It was terrible. But who cares? Life goes on. Life changes. I can't let what they did here at the stupid place change who I am. I've got to rise above all of this. And I'll tell you, as good as you think I have it right now, you'll look back on this. This isn't as good as it can get. So I thought I had it pretty good back in those days. It wasn't perfect. One story I'll tell you. Have I got time? One story. Can I tell just one story? I was sick. It was in 1960-something, early. I go to Europe with the Harlem Globetrotters. Got new clothes, dressed up. I'm a student. I'm still thinking of myself not as a ball player. I'm a student. So regularly, I made the rounds. Plus, it was a nice place to meet girls. I made the rounds of the coffee shops on the campuses at all the universities in Europe. It was nice. You sat on the sidewalk cafes, and you drink tea and coffee, and you talk. I went to Warsaw, Poland. In those days, they were called the satellite countries. They were communists under the regime of Russia. I never thought of myself, by the way, as being an American back in those days. I was a colored guy from Illinois who was a part of a system. Legally, I couldn't vote. Legally, I couldn't have access to a restaurant down here. Legally, I couldn't get a haircut in this town. Legally, I couldn't have an interracial marriage in certain states. Legally, there were things I couldn't do. I was living in someone else's country. Good basketball player, enjoyed it. But I wasn't really an American. I'm just on borrowed time here. I'd get beat up in Alabama, talked about in Mississippi, all that kind of Jim Crow in Chicago. I didn't think of myself really as an American. I was a ball player from Illinois. So I go to Warsaw, Poland, and I'm sitting there with these students. And they say, Mr. Jackson, in broken English, how can you justify being an American and supporting democracy when I see Bull Connors with a whip on your people? And I look at the papers and I see in Alabama someone standing at the door with a gun blocking students from going in. How can you tell us that democracy is so great when that's the way you've been treated? Here's a guy that hadn't thought of himself as being an American. I was a ball player, so I defined myself. And that was a time I had, what do you call an epiphany? That's when I crossed over. Because in my mind, I heard myself describe democracy. I heard myself talk about the warts and moles and how it was work in process and how for all its failures, the potential of it was so great and how I wanted to be in the mainstream of business and how as bad as it was, it had this or that. I heard myself telling these stories. And I said, who is this guy talking now? And I walked out of that meeting, and there was no way to go back. I made a commitment to be a capitalist. I made a commitment to be a part of democracy. I had made that commitment. This was my country. This is where I was going to be. This is what I'd aligned myself with. And what I didn't see that I didn't like, I was going to try to do something about it. So I was 21 years old. So when I left the University of Illinois, it wasn't perfect. Come on. What is? But this is my school. This is my state. This is what I identify with. My friends are here. This is where my comfort is. I can't erase that. And I sure won't change it if I don't come back to it, if I leave it someplace. So I say to those alums that feel that way, I feel sorry for them. I feel really bad for them, and I think they are going to wake up and grow up mature and get back in the mix again, because things are different. And things won't change unless they come back and confront it. You got to make a commitment to something. You got to believe in something. Believe in something, don't you? So I believe this is my place. That's, if I had to give that talk, if I had to give that talk to those characters, that's exactly what I would say. Come on, wake up. Come on, it's not perfect. It's not perfect for you. I mean, not any of us. Not perfect. Give me a tough one. This will be the last one. Give me a tough one.
What was the biggest mistake you've made in your career, and how did you correct it?
Okay, good night, everybody. Been nice talking to you. It's been a wonderful audience, and I look forward to coming back. I have made so many damn mistakes. I mean, I finally concluded that when I shot baskets over at the University of Illinois, I shot either 46% or something like that. Not bad. Free throws wasn't very good. I shot like 69, 70%. But I was all Big Ten, made All-America. In business, I'm running about 50-50. And I've made some huge mistakes. But you know what the difference is? The difference right now is I don't look back. I do not look back. I've left millions of dollars behind. I've screwed up in a relationship with people. I've stumbled over stuff. But it's been honest. I don't look back. I do not look back. I have the capacity to say, that was yesterday. But man, I made some big mistakes. Oh, we're telling about one today. Big mistakes. And I didn't want to think about them. But I don't look back. But you know, this is what's so good about the young people. 50-50, not bad in this business. If you work hard and keep plowing ahead, it's not bad. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good, hardworking, and honest. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the fastest person in the room. You just got to outrun the guy next to you. This is my guy right here. I'm through. Thank you.